You know that feeling when you're at the petrol pump, just watching those numbers spin higher and higher, and you just can't help but wonder, what am I actually paying for here? Well, it's a question millions of us face every day. And believe me, behind that one simple price, there's this incredible story, one that involves global markets, our own government's budgets, some pretty brazen crime, and even, sadly, a story of unbelievable courage. So let's get into it. Let's unpack the real price of a liter.
All right, so here's how we're going to do this. We're going to peel this thing back like an onion, layer by layer. First, we'll start with the price we all see at the pump. Then we'll dig into the taxes that make that number so big. After that, things get a little crazy. We'll look at a shocking scam that might be ripping you off. We'll also talk about the tragic human costs of fighting that corruption. And finally, we'll look to the future and ask, could electric vehicles change this whole game?
So, let's start with that first layer, the one we all know so well, that big number on the sign. It's a number that basically runs our lives, right? It affects our travel plans, our monthly budgets, and really, the cost of pretty much everything we buy. But let's make this concrete.
As of today in Mumbai, this is it, 90 rupees and 3 paise for a single liter of diesel. I mean, for a lot of people, that number right there dictates the whole day. It's been pretty steady for a bit, but it still feels high, doesn't it? So the million-dollar question is, where in the world is all that money actually going?
And that leads us perfectly into our second layer, where we're just going to follow the money. Because that price you pay, it's not just about what it costs to get crude oil from halfway around the world. Nope. A huge, massive piece of that price is decided right here by us through this kind of complicated web of taxes. And it has a massive impact on the government's wallet and, of course, on yours.
Okay, so check this out. This is how that price actually breaks down, and it is wild. Of course, the actual cost of the crude oil, that's a big piece of the pie for sure. But then just look at these other slices. You've got the union excise duty. That's a fixed amount that the central government takes on every liter. Then, on top of that, you have state-level taxes. When you put it all together, taxes are a staggering chunk of what you pay at the pump. It's huge. And this chart, this right here, shows you just how critical those fuel taxes are for the government's bank account. I mean, look, other big taxes like customs duty and CGST, they're actually underperforming their targets. But then you look over at excise duty. Wow, it's not just hitting its target, it's absolutely blowing past it, up over 9%. It is the star player on the team, no question. So you have to ask, why is it doing so well? What's the secret? Well, it's not really a secret at all. It's a direct result of a hike in that excise duty on petroleum products from earlier this year. That one decision has turned fuel into a massive moneymaker for the government, and it's basically making up for the shortfalls everywhere else. So yeah, every single time you fill up your tank, you're a major part of this whole story.
But okay, let's say you've made your peace with the price. You've accepted the taxes. You pull up. You're ready to pay. The one thing you should be able to count on is getting the amount of fuel you actually paid for, right? Well, this is where our story takes a much darker turn, into the world of some pretty clever high-tech theft.
This quote from the Hindustan Times just says it all. It perfectly captures the shock of this whole thing. A massive scam was uncovered in Uttar Pradesh, and it revealed this incredibly sophisticated way of just systematically cheating every single customer. It proved that our problems don't just stop with high prices.
And the way they did it was, honestly, terrifyingly simple. They'd install this tiny little chip inside the machine's cable. Then, using a remote control, they could turn it on. And once it was on, it would pump out less fuel than what you saw on the screen, shorting you anywhere from 50 to 100 milliliters on every single liter. Now that might not sound like a lot, but multiply that by thousands of customers a day across who knows how many petrol pumps, and you're talking about a theft on an absolutely epic scale. This kind of fraud, it's obviously costing us all a lot of money, but what's the cost of trying to stop it? What happens when just one person decides to stand up and do the right thing when faced with this kind of deep systemic corruption? That's where we get to what is, for me, the most important part of this whole story, the price of integrity.
This is Shanmugam Manjunath. He was an IIM Lucknow graduate, a sales officer for the Indian Oil Corporation. And by all accounts, he was a guy who was incredibly dedicated and just refused to look the other way when he saw corruption. But that commitment, it put him on a direct collision course with a really powerful criminal network. And tragically, he would pay for it with his life. This timeline just lays out his final heroic months. In September of 2005, he did his job. He found a corrupt pump selling bad, adulterated fuel, and he sealed it. Just 1 month later, it illegally reopened, but Manjunath, he didn't back down. On November 19th, he went back to conduct another surprise inspection, and on that same day, his body was found. He was murdered for simply doing his job, for refusing to be complicit. His story is just this chilling, heartbreaking reminder of the real human cost of all this.
So let's just recap. We have really high taxes, we have widespread fraud, and we have a system where doing the right thing, where having integrity, can literally be a death sentence. It is a bleak picture, and it leads to a really big question. What if we could just change the entire system? What if we could move away from the petrol pump for good? And that brings us to our final layer, the electric road ahead. See, the thing about switching to EVs is it's not just like swapping out a petrol tank for a battery. No, it's a complete and total disruption of the entire automotive world. The very heart of the car is different. We're moving from a world of engines, transmissions, and fuel injectors to a world of batteries, electric drives, and all these advanced sensors. It's a massive, tectonic shift for every single company involved.
And the scale of this change is just immense. By 2030, the old-school engine parts could shrink to just 11% of the market. Meanwhile, EV parts are projected to explode to over half the market. You've got the government pushing for an EV-only future by 2030. And you've got two-wheelers, which make up almost 80% of our roads, leading the charge. This isn't some far-off dream, people. This is an industrial revolution, and it is happening right now.
So here we are, full circle. We started with a simple number on a sign, and we've uncovered this whole world of taxes, theft, and real human tragedy. Now, this electric road ahead, it promises a fresh start, but it also comes with its own new challenges, its own complexities. So the really crucial question for all of us is this. As we move from pumps to plugs, are we going to take this chance to build a system with more transparency, with more trust, or are we just going to end up trading our old problems for a whole new set? That is the real price we all need to think about.